Good morning. I'm Charlotte Jones, co-host of the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock on Wjzz Cool TV. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public Schools superintendent, a former world-class athlete, conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, a longtime civil rights crusader, and author of 7 books: Creative Insubordination, What Old Men Know, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, The Poet Emperor of Earth, and his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run. Plus, another upcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. His books are available on Amazon.com or by calling 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy, a recipient of the City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year, and a Detroit track is named for him. His email is drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. That's dr.johntelfordedd@aol.com. Dr. Telford also has a show on WCHB AM 1340 that airs on Saturdays at 9:30 in the morning and Mondays at 6:30 in the evening. That's on WCHB AM 1340, Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Mondays at 6:30 p.m. And now, without further ado, I present to you that old native Detroiter, the one and only Dr. John Telford.
Good morning. Welcome to the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ. We've got co-host Charlotte Jones in the studio today, doing the format a little different today, and we also have Valerie Lockhart, who is the publisher of the Detroit Native Sun, which is the only newspaper in Detroit that's left that tells the entire truth, with the exception also of the Metro Times. I'd have to say that. And my co-host Charlotte Jones is the author of A Ain't Always for Apple. A Ain't Always for Apple. An erotic adult alphabet book.
Available at charjay.com.
Available at charjay.com. CHARJAY.com.
Yes, thank you.
My name, and I also have to mention that I have got a new poetry book coming out. This is my old poetry book, The Poetic Prancings of Man John, but I've got a new poetry book out now. And my new poetry book is Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic, in which I talk about all the athletes I competed with or against, and I talk about my activism. That's where the activism comes in, my social activism, because I've always been a social activist, and my encounters with the ladies over a period of 87, almost 88 years. So that is my new poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs. It is available at 20 locales, including, of course, Amazon.com. Just type in Dr. John Telford and you can get the book Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. My name is Detroit. I'm a blue-collar town. Blue salt melts my mid-March snow. Speedy cars and sprinters spring from me. I father fierce fighters and funky music. In a Motown moment, I can spit the blues right back in a bureaucrat's eye. Have you never seen blue salt? No complex chemistry here, only the old color of a new sky. Of a new sky. And there's a new sky dawning on Detroit today because, as I have said, we've got Valerie Lockhart in the station today in the WJZZ studio over on Shane Street in Detroit, and she is going to be sharing with us. I mean, Valerie Lockhart is a journalistic giant, and I don't say those words advisedly. I'm telling you that I mean, people give other people high praise sometimes when it isn't deserved. Well, Valerie's is most eminently deserved, and I want to share a poem with you because it has reminded me of about many of my guests on this show, but it specifically and particularly and emphatically reminds me of Valerie. And this is the poem. The poem is called The Values of Verse. Verse comes to us by pen or voice. We thus can always take our choice. Let me be also sure to mention that verse will gain us righteous vengeance via deft poetic arts that can topple oligarchs. Verse will clearly, plainly lay out what we poets dare to say out. Like gentle mewling lambs no more, but rather with a fearsome roar, as from some cacophonic core of lions. And we have a prodigious journalistic lioness in the studio today in the person of Valerie Lockhart, the publisher of the Detroit Native Sun.
Welcome.
So Valerie, Charlotte Jones and I welcome you to the John Telfer Detroit Show this morning on WJZZ Internet Television.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we have some questions that we want to ask you. But first we ask you, I just want to give you an opportunity to tell our listeners and watchers a little bit about yourself, your background, what you're about, where you came from, all of that good stuff.
Okay. Well, most people discover their gifts later in life, but my grandmother helped me to discover my gift for writing. I was in elementary school, and my grandmother was one of the founding members of the Service Employees International Union, the SEIU, Local 79. And she would have me come over and write union grievances. And I was in elementary school, and I didn't even know what they were. And she would explain the problem to me, and she was like, "Here, girl, take this pen and write out the problem." So I started writing union grievances when I was in elementary school.
About how old were you?
I had to be probably about 11, around 11 years old.
Sixth grade.
Right.
Yeah, what elementary school was that?
I went to Owen Elementary and Cheney Elementary.
Cheney.
Yes.
You know, my mother was a kindergarten teacher at Cheney.
Oh.
When Cheney was a K through 6.
Yeah, the only teacher I remember was Mr. Hawkins, the music teacher.
Oh, okay. Well, she was there before you were.
Okay.
My mother's born in 1907.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but so how about where'd you go to high school and college?
I went to Cody High School.
Oh yeah.
And I went to the University of Detroit for college.
Okay, a Titan.
Yes.
U of D Titan. You know, I was a sprint coach for that track team when we won the conference championship. That was many years, later. So okay, well let's start with some things about the Detroit Native Sun.
Okay.
Why did you? I remember the first time I met you. You were the editor of the Michigan Chronicle.
Right.
And I think Keith Owens was in there with you then too, wasn't he?
Yes, he was doing the Michigan Front Page, and I was doing the Michigan Chronicle. They were both sister papers in the same building.
Yeah, for oh my man, I'm getting
Sam Logan was
the great Sam Logan.
Yes.
Yeah, he's passed.
Right, and Karen Love.
And Karen Love. Yeah. And of course, Keith has managed a lot of the things I've done, and he's been a very good friend for many years. Old track man, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Keith is an old track man. Okay, so when and why Did you leave the Chronicle to start up the Detroit Native Sun?
Well, I left the Chronicle in September of 2005, and I started the Detroit Native Sun in October of 2005. And the reason why I left is I noticed there was a lot of hypocrisy with the papers. I used to always think, well, when I went to school, we were taught that newspapers are supposed to be neutral. So it always bothered me that newspapers would support political candidates or large corporations. And I'm like, how can you be neutral if you're endorsing a candidate? What if you have to write something negative about them? So later on, I learned that it was all about the money.
You got that right.
Whoever spends the most money with them usually gets the endorsement. And I wanted something different. I wanted to go back to the roots of what journalism is supposed to be, unbiased and unbought. So in October of 2005, I started the Detroit Native Sun. And our motto is to enlighten the community with helpful news and information not readily found in mainstream media. So a lot of the people that can't get coverage with the major newspapers or major media because they don't have the money to buy into it, they usually come to me to tell, their stories. And I do a lot of the research to make sure I dot all my I's and cross all my T's so that we don't get any potential lawsuits. And we've been publishing for 18 years.
18 years.
Yes,
Yeah,
and never missed a issue. Even with the pandemic, we still kept rolling.
And I've been writing for you almost that long. I can't remember
Yes.
when I started up with you, but 18 years, and that is one heck of a paper. It just it's a sad state of affairs when we only have two papers in maybe even in Michigan, certainly in the Detroit area, that tell the unvarnished truth all the time. And the Native Sun is one of those two papers. Okay, what do you cover? Talk a little bit about what you cover in the Detroit Native Sun.
Well, we give a voice to everyone in the community. We have Kids Times that's written by children. We used to have a little girl, when she first started writing, she was like in kindergarten. And her, I think she said it was the mayor of Ypsilanti, gave her an award for writing with us. She's now in high school now. It's been that long. So we have sections for kids to write. We have words of wisdom written by senior citizens. Then we have our community section that's written by community leaders or activists. Of course, we do the regular news. We cover the news stories. We have education, in which Dr. Telford is a regular contributor to that. Regular columnist.
Yeah, I write article too. I
Yes.
used to just write the Telford Telescope, but
Right.
that was a column. But now I give you an article too.
Exactly, yes. And then we have entertainment, and we have our one as a section as well as business. So we cover just about everything that the other papers cover.
Yeah, well, you cover a lot more than the other papers cover in that you do it with total honesty. Politics, man. I mean, money is the mother's milk of
Right.
politics, and that's why I did not have any chance of getting elected mayor, because I couldn't spend that kind of money, and I didn't have any chance of getting elected to the school board, which I ran for recently, but the incumbents got back in because they spent $250,000 apiece,
Right.
for 4 more years of do nothing. We've got this doggone, well, all the problems at the schools, because you've written about them time and again.
Exactly.
But we've got the problem with the towers that are seeping radiation onto all those elementary schools,
Right.
and making the students and staff ill. And we've got of course, the reading problem, which is horrendous. It's the worst in the country. Hopefully, somehow or other, we can get that turned around. And then we've got the problem at Moses Field School,
Right.
which you put on the front page of your paper.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that case, if you want to.
Well, one of the whistleblowers came to me, and she told me she's a teacher there. She's been on your
Katrina
show.
Brown.
Yes,
Katrina Brown.
and she should be praised for speaking up.
Pin a medal on it. That's what you
Exactly.
should be doing.
Yes, because teachers and staff are mandated reporters. I'm a licensed foster care parent as well, so I'm a mandated reporter.
Yeah,
If
I
I
met
see,
your young men today, and they're all very well behaved. They're here at the station.
They better
today,
be.
They're in the room next door. We're not hearing a peep out of them. You know, they're in there being very, very polite and quiet.
right. Yeah. So she came to told me about the abuse, and she told me one incident of a young man that was dragged down the hallways by his ankles, and his head was bobbing up and down, hitting the hard concrete. And this little boy can't speak, so he can't yell out for help. And the assistant principal, Krakakio, I believe her name is.
Chiola, something.
Yes. And a teacher, Lisa Wilson, was standing nearby watching it. And she's like, nobody stopped it or anything. Finally, the teacher went over and stopped it because she said she was waiting for the assistant principal to say something. So, and then we have another young man where he was slapped really, really hard by the teacher, and then he was choked. And he has limited speech as well. He was able to come home to tell his mother that the teacher choked him, but he had a difficult time expressing it. So, and the school never notified any of the parents of any of the abuse that's going on there.
Who's the principal there?
Derek Graves.
Derek Graves?
Yes.
I don't know him.
Yes. Well, he needs to be removed because he.
Well, I mean, how I try to help me understand this. How can this be? I mean, when I heard about this, I presumed that Dr. Vitti would immediately step in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
His response to me was to send me evidence. I'm like, well, you got the camera. They finally, after I broke the story, they started investigating it. The school board just now fired one of the professionals that slapped the little boy and choked him at the last school board meeting. They just fired him. However, the incident happened back in January. The other little boy that was dragged, this incident happened in February. And after we broke the story, now the school is trying to cover up because they were also restraining kids that could walk in Ripton chairs, which restricts their movement so they can't get up and walk. And those chairs are designed for kids that are wheelchair bound to assist them with their posture.
Right, okay.
But they were
using them punitively.
right to strap the kids down. And even the company cautions against using them for such purposes. And there's been a number of lawsuits throughout the country from other school districts being sued for using those chairs to restrain students as a form of punishment. So you would think DPS would know better not to restrict. And then there's pictures of the principal in the lunchroom with the kids strapped down in a chair, showing that he's aware of the abuse. There's another picture with the assistant principal pushing another girl that can walk down the hallway. She's able to walk. She walks with a walker, but she locked her in the chair, and it shows her pushing her down the hallway. And so after we published it, now the school is calling the parents, because we didn't show the kids' faces, but we mentioned the incident in the newspaper, and they're calling the parents up, telling them the pictures are fake. The pictures are fake.
What?
Don't believe the story. So I sent.
Sounds like Trump. Don't believe your eyes.
Right, fake news is what
Fake
they're
news,
saying.
Fake news.
Yeah. So I sent one of the parents the actual photograph and showed her other pictures where they have her daughter strapped down. She was like, yes, that's my baby. That's my baby.
God.
And she was like, there's nothing fake about this picture. So they're trying to cover it up. They held a meeting with the parents, and I was on the phone when they did it over Zoom, trying to show that those chairs are used for therapy, but that's not what they're using the chairs for. So they're trying to deceive the parents. And one parent, she kept asking them, her name is, her daughter, well, I shouldn't mention her daughter's name, but her name is Mrs. Logan. she kept asking them during the meeting, are you guys going to talk about the child abuse? And they kept saying, we're going to call you back after the meeting to explain to you. She said she has not received a call to this day.
To this day.
Have
To
other
this day.
papers picked up on that story or any of your other stories?
Chalkboard mentioned the abuse. They mentioned how the Detroit Board of Education fired the professional at the last school board meeting, but no one has mentioned it in any detail about the abuse.
You
But
know,
the parents are holding a news conference this Thursday
oh, really?
at 4 p.m. at attorney Michael Fortner's
In
office.
Southfield?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And they're going to discuss it then. So we invited the media out, and I actually distributed the press release and a number of papers, the Free Press, and the news did respond to it.
They didn't.
They did.
Oh.
They did respond.
Yeah,
They're
it's about-
asking.
It's about time they got involved. They're probably reluctant to do so because there's so much, but you know.
Probably being paid off somehow.
Exactly, exactly. But I've been concerned about the reading. You know, that's been third grade reading. Kids come out of the third grade not able to read. They're virtually doomed.
Right.
Kids come
But-
out of high school not being able to read.
Well, I got kids at Frederick Douglass who can't read. You know, I'm the poet in residence for the schools, and I have a class at Frederick Douglass that I teach. Go around to the high schools, do my poetry out of these books here. You know, but when I heard about this, it took my attention for a moment off the reading problem. I'll be very frank.
Right.
I mean, this is just a horrendous situation. You don't beat kids.
Yeah,
You
school
don't
is
beat
the one
poetry,
place where
can't talk.
you should feel safe at school, but they're being beaten, literally beaten and dragged and slapped and choked by staff, and the principal and the assistant principal is aware of it. When the police did their investigation, the DPS, and I think her name is Kelly Taylor, the detective, Cracchioli, in the report, she said she never saw any abuse.
What?
First she said she never saw any abuse. Then she turns around and says, well, I disciplined the paraprofessional. I wrote her up. How you gonna write her up if you never saw any abuse? So she lied on there. And then the detective was able to view the video. She got the video. She did see him being dragged down the hall by his feet. She said she didn't see his head hitting the floor, but he was dragged for several, feet. And she saw where the teacher, Lisa Wilson, walked over, and she just told the little boy to get up, and she was his previous year's teacher, so he just obeyed her and stood right up with no incidents or anything. But she saw the video with the assistant principal there and the teacher there who intervened and stopped the abuse.
You know, I'm wondering if any journalist in the city of Detroit, other than you, would have stepped forth and covered this horrendous case. I mean, this case is a horrendous one.
Right.
I mean, you can't understate the severity, the gravity, the cruelty
Exactly.
of this mistreatment. I mean, it boggles the mind, and we're not going to devote the entire show today to this case. I did have Katrina Brown, on the
Right.
show. The whistleblower, the heroic whistleblower.
Yeah, and she's being retaliated against for speaking up about the abuse.
Well, she's got Mike Fortner, and I think this is probably going to cost the taxpayers a whole lot of money.
Yes, and then when the parents filed their suit as well.
And this is so unnecessary.
Exactly.
It's like the situation in the River House, where Virginia Starkey and I have had to lead a lawsuit, against the River House management because they won't follow the bylaws and give us a special meeting to air concerns. Anyway, let me ask you this. The Detroit Native Sun, and I wish, I should have brought one of the copies.
Yeah, I left them in the news.
Anybody have a copy? No.
Cleaned out my
I
purse.
would like to have put the headline, in front of the camera. My bad. Tried to remember everything. But the Detroit Native Sun has been functioning and doing yeoman work that the News, Free Press, and the other local papers should have been doing and haven't been doing for 18 years. To what, Valerie Lockhart, publisher of the Detroit Native Sun, do you attribute the Detroit Native Sun's longevity?
I attribute it to Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Because each time I say, well, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to do this anymore because it's costing me money out of my pocket, sometimes to cover the publishing costs. But God always makes a way for the next issue to come. So I stop doubting and just prepare for the next issue. Even if I don't have, all the funds available, we manage to get it by the time, it's due. So I stop worrying about it now. But it's only because of Holy Spirit and prayer.
Well, you're a very spiritual lady, but how can we recruit some angels? I'm not talking about up in heaven. I'm talking about right down here. How can we
Financial angels.
Financial angels.
Yeah.
How can we recruit them because I'm sure that there are some folks out here who see that paper, who know what you're doing, who hear this show, and this show's going to be, you're going to get a tape of this show. Roger Penzabeni's going to send me an email of it, and you'll get the tape, and you can circulate this. But
Or you can just go on Facebook. It's there.
and you can also go on Facebook. But
Okay.
for the emails, that's why he sent it. But how can we do that?
Well, it's supported through advertising. So
I know
if-
that.
if
I
you-
know
if
it's
you take
supported
out
through
an
advertising,
ad,
but
you can-
I'm talking about beyond advertising now, because some advertisers are running a little short too. Everybody's running short right now.
Right.
I know I am. I'm trying to sell these these books right here to
As ever, huh?
stay on the air. Say how you can be contacted. If you're listening out there, the Detroit Native Sun is a worthwhile paper for any Democrat worthy of the name. I'm talking about Democrat with a small d who believes in democracy, in freedom and justice.
Let me ask you, is the paper a 501c3?
No, but
okay.
we've looked into changing it over to a nonprofit. So we're still exploring that option, but right now it's a for-profit business that's supported solely on advertising.
Well, let's get it supported by some financial angels too. How can you be contacted if anyone out there watching or listening today who's of independent means and is a Democrat with a small d and has a mind to support one of the two papers in the Detroit area that tells the unvarnished truth?
Well, they can find us online at DetroitNativeSunOnline.com, and then there's a section
Now,
where
Detroit Native Sun is spelled Detroit Native Sun, S-U-N,
Right.
not S-O-N. Detroit Native Sun Online.com.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they could just go to the About Us page and click on Contact Us, and it sends an email message directly to me that I, read all the emails. Or they can reach me at editor@DetroitNativeSunOnline.com, or they can send it to DetroitNativeSunNews@gmail.com.
DetroitNativeSunNews@gmail.com. And remember, watchers, Detroit Native Sun is spelled, the sun is S-U-N, not S-O-N. So that's how you can contact publisher Valerie Lockhart, whom we are interviewing today at Detroit Native Sun.
DetroitNativeSunNews@gmail.com. And Sun, we deliberately made it Sun, S-U-N, because we like to enlighten the community.
Right, I get it.
That's cute.
I get it.
You're watching WJZZ Cool TV, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. And Recovery Park is having their Pride Day on June 24th at 5470 Shane. You can reach out to them on their Facebook page. Recovery Park on their Facebook page. And we are hosting the WJZZ Legacy Jazz Series Thursday, July 13th from 7 to 9. Matt LaRusso Trio with special guest vocalist Taylor Smith and celebrity guest co-host Griot John Taylor. And that's going to be at the Aretha Jazz Cafe, 350 Madison Street in Detroit. And tickets are available, I believe, on Eventbrite, or you can go to our website. I'm sure you can find the information there. That's the WJZZ Legacy Jazz Series, Thursday, July 13th, 7 to 9 at the Aretha Jazz Cafe.
And I would also like to mention that Willie Burton, Police Commissioner Willie Burton, has lost his younger brother, Roosevelt Outlaw. And the funeral is going to be this coming Friday. If anyone wants the information on it, I unfortunately don't have it with me, but email me at Dr. John Telford, EDD@AOL.com, and I will share that information with you. The viewing, I know, is going to be at Kohl's on West Grand Boulevard. Kohl's is on West Grand Boulevard, and that will be tomorrow afternoon, Thursday, tomorrow afternoon, the 22nd of June. So I wanted to make everyone aware that Willie Burton lost his younger brother, a wonderful man, Roosevelt Outlaw. His son's an honors student. In fact, one of his last appearances was at his son's graduation from high school with honors. And how he passed is just horrendous, because he was over on 7 Mile Road walking across the street, got hit by a hit-run driver who was fleeing from another hit-run, and he fled to Ohio, and he's being brought back to Detroit now to face charges, and he's got an Alabama license plate. I mean, it's just this man died too soon, an upstanding citizen, and we all are mourning a Roosevelt Outlaw, younger brother of Police Commissioner Willie Burton. And I'll tell you who else we just lost. I just found this out today. Bill Hoover called me to tell me that we've lost Orlin Jones. Orlin Jones, who is Mr. Pershing High School. I don't know if anyone is listening knows Orlin, but Orlin has done everything to support that school. I was a track coach there for a number of years. And Orlin was the city high and low hurdles champion in track, but he has been the major booster of that school for all these many years. And when I have further information on the arrangements, I will broadcast them on WCHB and also on WJZZ. So. Rest in peace, Roosevelt Outlaw and Orlin Jones. We are interviewing Valerie Lockhart, publisher of the intrepid Detroit Native Sun, the truth-speaking Detroit Native Sun, one of the two great newspapers still functioning in the city that tells the truth. I like to share this couplet, because I am a poet. And the couplet, that's just 2 lines. Tell the truth, that's 1 line. To our youth, that's the 2nd line. Tell the truth to our youth. That's what we have to do. Like this guy in Florida, the governor of Florida, is trying to kill all that now, and I don't know if you want to make any comments about that, Valerie, or not, before we ask you some other of your questions.
Well, it's funny because my 9-year-old son told me, well, we can't go to Disney World in Florida because they're telling all black people not to protest going to Florida because of Governor DeSantis, so we're going to go to Disneyland in California again. It's crazy that some of the things that he's doing.
What's happening in this country? I mean, I'm almost 88 years old. Well, that's not what we're talking about today. I talk about it enough on the radio and here, but I almost can't believe the developments. I mean, you've got a Congress that's made up of fascists, a slim minority, just a slim minority of fascists. But I'm afraid it's going to become a majority before too long if we don't do something. Okay. Talk a little bit more about how the Detroit Native Sun is supported. Is it free? I mean, talk a little
Yeah,
bit
it's-
about.
It's a free community newspaper because I never felt that community or residents should have to pay to read news about what's going on in their own community. It should be accessible to them for free. So it's supported primarily by advertising. And we have some long-time advertisers with us, like Loving Life and LaBelle Towers. They were a long-time advertiser. They just stopped, but we're going to get them to do something else. And then we have Day Roof, which does a full-page ad, and he's been doing a lot of donations, helping people in the community that has leaky roofs and don't have the funds to get it repaired. So he's helped one lady in Highland Park. So he's pretty good with that. The owner's name is Michael. I can't remember his last name right now, but the name of his company is Day Roof.
What is it?
It's called Day Roof. And you could go to dayroof.com. D-A-Y and then roof, R-O-O-F.com.
Day Roof.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm doing my part by distributing the paper,
Yes.
I just don't write for you. I distribute your paper. In fact, I used to take your paper over to Reverend Williams' house because he lives right down the street from me. I'm at the River House on the 8900 East Jefferson. And I used to take the paper over to his house and put it on his front porch. But he was cutting his lawn one day and he says, John, I'm going to send someone to pick up the paper now because my wife would rather you didn't throw it on the front porch all the time. And I said, okay, well, send somebody over. But then this last time he didn't send anybody over. So I delivered the paper myself. I took it to the church. But I have the show on WCHB that runs from 9:30 to 10. And the meeting that I'm a member of this group,
the National Action
National
Network.
Action Network.
And I've been there.
Yeah,
before,
well, they'll support
your
you.
invitation.
You bet, they'll support you 100%. But I went to the National Action Network meeting, which I usually can't do because the meeting starts at 10, and my show is just over at 10, and I do it from the River House. So it's hard to get over there at 10 o'clock. But I did it this last Saturday. I went over with the papers. And then Lori Parks, who's a member, and she's also a member of National Action Network, and I believe perhaps of the church too, told me that she will deliver them from now on.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice of her.
Yeah, so she's going to come and pick them up, and you're going to give me another packet because she said she was going to deliver that packet to one of the old people's homes, unless it's one of the ones you get it delivered to. But anyway, after that digression, Char, you got any questions to ask?
No.
Okay, well let's get back to these. What currently are you working on in terms of stories?
Well, currently I'm working on. Well, remember the nurse that was murdered at DMC by her boyfriend?
Yeah.
So I'm talking with her mother today. There's new developments in there. There was an eyewitness to the whole murder. They didn't cover that on the mainstream news, and she went into the hospital and reported it to the security guard. Well, when she went in, the security guard wasn't there at the front desk like he was supposed to be. And so she had to track him down. So she reported the murder hours before the police even responded
The
to
kidnapping,
it.
not the
Right.
kidnapping.
Yeah. Well, actually, from what she says, he hopped in her car and he shot her right there in the parking lot.
That's,
And so she witnessed the whole thing and went in to report it to the security desk, but the security wasn't there. So she had to track down the security guard, and she reported it to him, and she made the police statement as well. But no one is talking about that portion of it on, in the
and
media.
also they said he came to her house prior, and she caught him on her Ring camera, and he was trying to break in. And I mean, this is what somebody told me that they saw on the news, so I don't know, but I'm thinking, and I don't like to speculate on stuff like this because I wasn't there, that had she had called the police on him that night, maybe he would have been in custody because once they got him, they found out the first baby mama or something, he did something to her. So maybe, this could have all been avoided. We'll never know, but,
Yeah, well, I'm speaking with her mother today, so I'll get more details on that. And then there's another story where a man was paralyzed at the hands of the Southfield police, which I did the cover story for this month. And I went to visit the man yesterday, and he's doing really well. He can move his hands now, and he said he has feelings in his legs. But he, gave me the whole story because Southfield police is saying that he ran into a wall and he injured himself. But the doctors are saying that it's impossible for that much force.
He repeatedly ran into the wall.
Right.
They showed a Warren police officer
right,
this morning. They showed that has beaten someone that was in custody.
Right.
And so that might be something you might want to jump on as well with that gentleman and his family. Unfortunately, these things are out here like that.
So they're only giving you partial truths with the mainstream media, or they're only telling part of the story. Because even the police chief held a news conference in Southfield, and he was showing the video. And I was like, well, where's the rest of the video that shows you're telling us that you took him out on a stretcher and had a neck brace on him? But the man is saying that he doesn't recall going to because it was 8 hours before the hospital called his family.
So he lost consciousness.
Well, he was conscious.
Oh,
he just couldn't move. But when they took him to the hospital, they didn't tell the hospital that he had injuries to his neck, that his neck was possibly broken.
Oh, gee.
So he was sitting there for hours until they finally called his parents, like 8 hours later, to say we need to do emergency surgery because he's paralyzed and his neck is broken or something.
God.
Or he said one of his vertebrae was
Fractured
on his spine or something. So if the hospital had known that he had a neck injury when they brought him in there, perhaps, he wouldn't be in such bad shape. But he was sitting there for hours before they even discovered that. So there's still a lot to the story.
So when they brought him to the hospital, what did they say? He ran into a wall? Was the explanation or something? Because why wouldn't the hospital?
They brought him to the hospital saying that he was having a mental health crisis.
Okay.
Instead of even mentioning about his neck. Is what he's saying.
A possible injury.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then he told me that he was on, and he gave me the name of the medication. And the medication caused you to have psychosis or have irrational behavior. So I'm going to research the name of the medication as well to see what the side effects are. Because he said he's never had any mental health issues. And another thing he was upset is the media and the chief said that he had beat his mother unconscious. He never touched his mother. His mother, he was actually...
You're making up stories.
Right. He was wrestling with his brother and his cousin, and his mother walked in between to try to break them up, and she failed.
Oh.
So he never put a hand on his mother. So he wants everyone to know that he's not a monster. And he did apologize to the police officer, the woman police officer that was injured while he was being arrested, because he said that's not his normal behavior. It was the medicine that was making him to act irrational. So he wants that to be brought out. And he's a teacher too in Oak Park.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, and he has a little 5-year-old son.
Oh.
So they're trying to portray him as a monster that beat on his mother, and vandalized property and hit the police officer. But he said none of that is, who he really is.
So is his attorney Mr. Fortner as well?
Yes.
Oh, man, look out, man. Mike Fortner is going to go after him, Go ahead.
You're watching the Dr. John Telfer Detroit Show live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like us, follow us, share us, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. So what do you want to tell?
I got to do this.
Oh.
Got to do this. Miss Virginia Starkey, fondly known simply as V, the proprietress of V's Boutique, which offers a wide range of fine clothing and accessories for ladies. And you can find all sizes of women's fine apparel in V's one-stop excellent customer service at V's Boutique for Ladies. that you can't find anywhere else in Detroit anymore. Wjzz is at 16423 East Warren Avenue. That's 16423 East Warren Avenue, at the corner of East Outer Drive. And the phone number there, if you want to make an appointment with me, is 586-405-3020. That's 586-405-3020. It's right around the corner from the old Alger Theater, and in one of the few libraries that's still left open in the city of Detroit.
Okay,
Wjzz
so-
Boutique for Ladies.
All right, so sum it up for us. What do you want people to know? How do they contact you? That type of thing.
Just pick up the Detroit Native Sun is published the second Friday of every month. So pick one up at your local outlet. It's available at grocery stores like Greenfield Market, the Glory Supermarket. There's a market on 7 Mile in Evergreen. I can't think of the name of it right now.
I always take them over to the Indian Village Market, but sometimes they're already over there because Larry's brought them over
Right.
there. But he
Yes.
doesn't always bring them over there. So when he does, they get a double dose.
Yeah, it's available at markets, gas stations, the main branch of the Detroit Public Library, the Oak Park Library. So just pick up your copy on the second Friday of every month.
Okay, thank you so much for being here with us. You've got something real quick?
Yeah. And I wrote this on January the 6th, 2021. On this evil and fatal occasion of the Capitol building invasion, the traitor Trump's collusion demands his execution. God yet hasn't pushed the lever on the traitor Trump forever. And when he does, it's to be hoped it's the lever of the gas chamber, but not until he chokes on a cheeseburger or at least goes to prison, because we're not going to see him in the gas chamber, but he will go to prison. I just don't want him to pardon himself if he gets elected president, pardon everybody else that supported him.
Okay, and my books, A and Always for Apple, Volume 1 and Volume 2 1/4, are available at charjay.com for $15 each. And get you a copy. You will not regret it. It's teach you how to read, and it's super sexy. That's going to do it for us. Okay, we're out, and thank you for joining us, Valerie.
Thank you.
Good show.